Am I enjoying Tom Clancy's The Division? I'm feeling kinda lukewarm, you know, middle of the road right now. The Division is a loot-driven third-person shooter RPG. There is a story, but it's really not a good story. The setting is amazing, the plague that breaks out with the money and everything, but the plot is just so generic, so Ubisoft-like, you could say, that I have no interest in seeing it through. So basically, your goal is to reach level 30, which is the level cap, because that's what you do in these games. This is not really a story-driven RPG like a Skyrim or a Fallout, where you choose your path and have several options on how to tackle the obstacles in front of you. This is more like a Borderlands if the characters were boring, or Destiny if it was third person. Don't get me wrong, the shooting, the cover system, the loot progression, all of that is really well done, and it is satisfying to see the numbers go up, but the activities you do, the missions themselves, are generic, and if you do the side content, it's very repetitive. Before playing this game, I had 3 questions that I wanted answered, and if The Division could provide me with satisfactory answers, then I had no doubt this game would be awesome. This was the first one. How is the mission variety? Currently I'm a level 18, I've played 12 hours of this game, and I want to say that the main missions have some very cool moments. But that's it. They are very few and far between. Now I don't know if towards the end game they get better, so I decided to bring along my friend MarcoStyleNL, the #1 YouTube channel for The Division, to help me answer this question. Hi Marco.
Hey, #1. I really like that.
You are. It's true. So, towards the end game, do the missions get better? Is the variety better?
Yeah, well, my opinion about that is that I haven't really experienced that the missions are super repetitive. I always felt like that you could try to do one thing or another, and especially when playing in a squad, that might have given me a different experience. I understand that if you're playing alone, you're gonna have to go through a lot of enemies and a lot of waiting, a lot of defending specific areas, I assume, which can be quite frustrating and maybe not as much fun alone. And then if you're talking about the cool moments like big buildings blowing up, like in the construction site, spoiler alert by the way, or like other special things that happen, I think that's what you are considering as very cool moments right now, and those do not increase over the course of playing missions. For me, the experience was great, and I didn't feel like that the missions were boring, but that might be because I played in a squad and I had a completely different experience than that you had, right?
Right, I mostly played by myself because I don't like the matchmaking at all. Every time I tried to matchmake with someone, the game would take me out of my game and put me in someone else's game, and the load times for that to happen are just atrocious. So if you don't have a dedicated... Yeah, it's that bad. For you to join another player's world, you have to sit through a very long loading screen, and I just didn't like that. So what I did was open up my group and let anyone join me on my missions in my world. And that just opened up a whole other can of worms where people were joining in with Chinese radios on the voice comms. You know, people suck. It's my conclusion. People suck and have always sucked in these kinds of games, so unless you have friends to play with, I was not a fan of the matchmaking at all.
I can actually agree with that a little bit, not because I played the missions alone or anything, but I tried playing alone the other day and it was just not as much fun as playing with friends or playing in a squad or playing, you know, with a dedicated healer, tank or DPS kind of person. So I think your experience on how fun and how cool these missions are gonna be, it's gonna be for a big part rely on whether you're having that solid squad to play with. And that I don't think that's just for the missions, I think that's for the entire game, because I've also tried some Dark Zone by myself. I was level 30, I had like 40,000 DPS per second, like DPS, and going into the Dark Zone, I had 60,000 health. I had like such good gear. I went into the Dark Zone alone the day after I got the gear, and I literally have a clip of me emptying 500 bullets into a guy and him just not dying. Literally that. And that was the point. I was like, yeah, you need a squad to play this. Enemies are... This game is just not balanced around that single player experience. And I think that's the same for missions as well.
Yeah, I think the freedom of this game and the way you tackle the missions, a lot of it comes to the synergy between squad members. And if you're playing by yourself, there's not a lot of ways you can play. Like, you have to have the heal as one of your abilities because you don't have a dedicated healer. So that's one ability slot that you cannot.
And then a lot of people use the turret as well as a distraction device, kind of like...
Exactly, that's exactly what I did. I use
exactly.
the turret.
Yeah, and then that you're kind of locked in that. And if you're looking at ultis, you have a healing ulti, which heals everybody that's down, but you can't use it if you're down yourself. So that's useless. So you're kind of locked into the specific skills that you have to use, and you have to go for like a more tankier build with maybe a little bit of DPS. Otherwise, you're gonna keep dying. There's nobody to revive you. There's nobody to carry the mission if you actually do die in those no respawn areas. And I think that just makes the game a lot more bland and not a lot of fun. And that's not gonna change over the course of getting to the end game missions.
I think we've reached a very plausible conclusion, which is if you don't have friends to play this game with, don't do it, because playing with strangers sucks. And playing by yourself also sucks. I also had a question about the enemy variety. I've seen guys with flamethrowers, I've seen guys running at me with baseball bats, I've seen guys with shields, with guns. There's enemy variety there, but not to the level of a Borderlands where you find, you know, crazy animals, crazy creatures. Not to the level of Destiny, where you have aliens that teleport, aliens that if you shoot them, they multiply and become 2 guys at the same time. So I'm curious towards the end game. How's the enemy variety? How many enemies are there? Are there any surprises that we can expect towards the end game? And I would ask you not to spoil this time.
I can't.
Just say yes. It's kind of a yes or no question, and we'll trust you.
It's a yes question. Enemies definitely do have a lot of variety near the end game, especially after you've completed all the missions, because I can actually say this, because this is common knowledge. If you complete the missions and you are level 30, and you have a 4-man squad, you can replay the missions on a challenge mode, which will not introduce new enemies, but it will use all the, let's say, special enemies from the higher level missions that you only get to encounter once, and make those common enemies to form new challenges. So that's something, you're gonna have a whole lot of replayability there if you have that set of squad and you do want to get, you know, that extra challenge.
That leads me to the very last question. What is the endgame loop after you reach level 30, besides the Dark Zone? Because I think the Dark Zone is going to be fun for a while, but not forever. What's the endgame loop besides the Dark Zone after you reach level 30? Is it that challenge mode?
Exactly. Like, as you said, the Dark Zone is going to be fun for maybe a little bit. After everybody is maxed out and they went rogue a couple of times, you know, it might start to become boring. So besides the Dark Zone, I think there is that PvE endgame with what I just call it, challenge mode is what it's called, yeah. And then there are daily and weekly challenges, which is pretty much like what you have in Destiny, kind of ish. You have the weekly and dailies there as well. Those can give you extra experience and Phoenix credits as well. Now, Phoenix credits it's a special type of currency that you can get after you reach max level, and you can spend those Phoenix credits on like vendors in the Dark Zone. But other than that, I do not know what the end game is going to be like. I think that is the end game, actually.
All right, thank you very much, Marco. My conclusion, and you can weigh in on my opinion if you want. My conclusion is that leveling up is not the best experience, but it sounds like the end game has some interesting stuff to it. So this is sort of reminding me of vanilla Destiny. And Destiny is now a very good game after the last expansion. I absolutely love Destiny. But when it came out, leveling up was so boring, it had so many missions of the same type, but a lot of people suffer through it because the end game, the raid, the Vault of Glass was really, really cool. And this feels like another one of those, where the leveling up experience maybe isn't the best, but there's something to look forward to in the end game.
I think that really just comes back to the way that you experience the game. Like I said, for me, the leveling process, I didn't mind it. I don't have the best gear yet, but I did go through that process of leveling up my character. And I think because I played in a squad, I just had a lot of fun doing it, because this is one of the very few games that I genuinely enjoyed throughout playing it. I didn't get fatigued, I didn't get tired. Maybe it's because, you know, I was also on Red Bull when I was playing it, because I had to stream for like a long time. So that might have, you know, had a part in it. But I wasn't saying, I wasn't thinking to myself, oh, we have to go through another mission just to get like another 2 levels before we can do. It wasn't like that. I enjoyed playing the mission, so we just have a completely different experience.
Alright, guys, don't play it alone if you can avoid it. Definitely do it with friends if they're also interested in the game. And if you have played The Division, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. Marco, thank you very much for joining me today.
No problem, man. I had a lot of fun.
Check out Marco's channel in the description below if you want more The Division content. And until next time, I've been Globku. Oi!